Heartland Express. This was a company I knew nothing about. I've been seeing them on the roads for years, but I really didn't know anything about them and wasn't too sure about them. The more I got into looking at them, the more I liked this company, the more I liked its founder, and really it's a great story, so stay tuned. So guys, I put a thing out on Facebook with a few companies to take votes on, see what companies you guys wanted to hear about. And the one that won was Smith Transportation. So why am I doing one on Heartland? Well, Smith has a great story and I can't wait to get to it, but I'm going to do that one after this video. And the reason I did this is because I found out through my studies of Smith that they were bought just last year, 2022, by Heartland, as well as a bunch of other companies that I want to do a story on. So I decided to start with Heartland since they are the parent company of all these other companies I want to do stories on. And after looking into Heartland, it's really a pretty cool story. I mean, I like their business model. I like the way they've worked. So let's get into it here. As always, you know, I got a book full of notes, many pages here. I try to memorize everything, but there's just too much to memorize, and nobody seems to mind that I look at the notes now and then. If you do, sorry, I'm not an actor. I can't remember everything. But Heartland was started in 1955 as Scott's Transportation, and it was started as a hauler for a new line of washing machines you might have heard of called Whirlpool. And not much is known about the company early on, except they had grown to 16 trucks. By 1978, had a fleet, and that's when it was bought by Russell A. Gerdin. I think it's Gerdin. I don't think it would be Gerdin. G-E-R-D-E-N. Yes. But here's a story of Russell Gerdin. His father had spent years in the trucking industry as a truck driver and as a trucking company owner. And Russell went to work for his dad right out of college. But it only lasted about 6 months because they had way different opinions about how to run a company. And basically it had to do with debt. Gerdin's dad used debt to buy trucks and to expand, and therefore paid high interest. And Gerdin did not like the amount of interest that he was constantly paying. And when he would get money, he would get more loans. And Russell Gerdin had the idea that he wanted to pay off one truck before purchasing another one, which is a very slow moving process, but a lot less risk. I got to believe that Dave Ramsey would have loved Russell Gerdin. If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, you should probably look into that. But so he had bought this in 1978. And when deregulation took effect, it opened up a lot of new opportunities for smaller companies like Heartland. And so it took him a couple of years paying things off, and in 1986, they were able to start expanding fairly aggressively. So to start this expansion, what they did was they took the company public, and basically they sold 1.5 million shares at $10 a piece. Doing the math in my head, that's like $7 billion. It's actually $15 million, which is already a pretty good, pretty good profit. But, so this left him, of course, he still owned majority. I believe it said he owned 65% of the shares. But this allowed pretty aggressive growth. And in 1987, they had $26 million in revenue and $3.5 million in profit. They had 126 company trucks and 125 owner-operators. So here's some more growth. In 1988, they had 150 trucks and 150 owner-operators. And they had 715 trailers. A profit of $5 million on $34.6 million in revenue. So right from the beginning, Heartland and Russell Gerdin had a policy of keeping the fleet young. Basically, they wanted to keep the trucks very young. And this meant that they wanted to get rid of their trucks before 350,000. Basically, what they said is they wanted trucks running and not in the repair shop. They wanted their repair shop to be able to do maintenance and small repairs, not do big repairs, overhauls, transmissions, clutches, things like that at the time. So another thing that kept their trucks moving was they always had a policy of having at least two trucks for every one of their trailers, or two trailers for every one of their trucks. Obviously, this left a lot more drop and hook opportunities. So there was a recession that started in 1989 and went into the 90s. And it did not affect Heartland very much because they had no long-term debt, like some of the other companies did. In fact, Gerdin told Forbes magazine in 1990, it says, "In good times, maybe we don't look so smart, but now we do." Basically, because they were running a debt-free company. So in 1989, Gerdin also made a big decision to start converting his trailers to the new 53-foot trailers that were coming out. And they were actually the first company to totally transfer their whole fleet over. Obviously, this gave them 11% more freight space and almost no change in operating costs. In 1989, they also started converting to all cabovers, which I actually had a lot of trouble finding too many pictures of Heartland cabovers. I don't know how long they kept their fleet that way. I don't remember it. It doesn't mean I didn't see it. I'm sure a lot of you guys did remember it. Feel free to comment down below. But in 1990, the trailer conversion was over. They had 1,500 new 53-foot trailers and 525 company tractors, including 235 which were new cabovers that they were transferring. This was an increase over 100% over the previous year. And even with the new trucks and the trailer conversions, they remained debt-free. Wow. So in 1990, even despite all this conversion and everything, they showed a profit of $7.3 million on $63 million in revenue. So in 1991, Gerdin decided to give up some of his control. I said he owned 65% before, and he sold 650,000 shares, and that left him with 51%. So I guess if you own 51%, you still didn't give up control. But yeah, anyway. But this allowed him to double the size of his company-owned fleet and do a major expansion into the Southeast, a place they weren't real strong in. To further the Southeast expansion, they started a company called Heartland Distribution Services and opened a distribution warehouse in Atlanta to focus on the Southeast short haul. By 1992, just a year later, they had to buy a bigger warehouse. Interesting. In 1992, they also combined two of their distribution centers in Lamont, Missouri and Dyersburg, Tennessee, and moved them into St. Louis to accommodate that region and their short haul area, which, for those of you in the industry, we know the Midwest, I mean, St. Louis, big circle around St. Louis has always been huge and still is. It's still a great, great place for revenue. In 1993, they showed revenues of $115 million. It didn't say their profit from that in this particular thing that I read. In 1993, they also bought a struggling company called Munson Transportation out of Illinois. I forgot about Munson till this, but now Munson's on the list to do a story of. So this should have doubled the size of the company. And for the sale, Munson received $73 million in Heartland shares. And Heartland took on $55 million of Munson debt. Now that's a weird move to me for a company who remains debt-free. They actually took on $55 million worth of debt. So I did find that pretty interesting. But this gave Heartland access to Munson's Northeast and West markets, making them a nationwide carrier now. So, unfortunately, it also gave them a lot of old, worn-out equipment and aging facilities. Because of this, they had to consolidate the equipment, basically absorb them up into Heartland, basically to get the company up to Heartland standards. So, it didn't quite allow them to double the size because Munson wasn't quite worth the money for the double until they brought him up to standards, is basically what I get out of that. But despite the challenges from the Munson purchase, Heartland was able to pay off all of Munson's debt by the end of 1995. 2 years, they paid off $55 million of debt and show $20.5 million profit on $200 million in revenue. And this, for the first time ever, made Heartland a top 10 truckload carrier in the United States. So was the Munson purchase a bad one? I don't know. I would really have to look at books to see that, because it gave them operations in Northeast and West. Munson was a pretty big company, so they were able to pay off the debt because of good management. I don't think it was a bad purchase. So, in 2011, Russell Gerdin stepped down as CEO of Heartland and gave the reins to his son, Michael Gerdin. So, this is starting to sound like the Arrow story, isn't it? Nope, not this time. Michael Gerdin is a great second generation that was brought up in the company. His first job was as a teenager working in the wash bay at Heartland. So basically, this is totally different than Dougie Peel Sticker. This kid was raised with convictions and values, and well, he's not a kid anymore, obviously, but as a kid, he was raised with convictions and values, and obviously some pretty good parenting. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about when I say Doug Peel Sticker, I'll put it up here, the story of Arrow. But the reason he stepped down was for health concerns. And actually, a month later after he stepped down, Russell Gerdin passed away at the age of 70 years old. So, to me, this is another good, great man in trucking, great person in trucking, did a great job with the company. Let me say a couple things about Russell Gerdin that I found out after this, and reading an obituary and some other stuff. There's a quote that says that Gerdin left a legacy of hard work and quality that will live on through his family and his employees. So, very cool story. I also found out a couple other things, and that's that Russell Gerdin, along with his wife Ann, donated tens of millions of dollars to Iowa State University and University of Iowa. Of course, it's where Heartland Express is from. And also Morehead State University, which was actually Gerdin's alma mater up in Minnesota. So the Iowa State University College of Business building and the University of Iowa Athletic Centers are both named after the Gerdins. So what a great legacy. Hats off to you, Russell Gerdin, and the Gerdin family for what seems to be a good family. And hopefully I did not butcher your name the whole time. But yeah, hey, guys, I always say this. I love the comments. Put the comments below. Whether you got good things to say about Heartland or bad things to say about Heartland. And you know what I just remembered I forgot? To talk about their purchases here recently. So that was the end of Gerdin's. But I may be missing something. And I think I'm missing a couple companies that I couldn't find anything out about. But most recently, in July 6th of 2017, they bought Interstate Distributor Company for $113 million. And in November of 2017, Heartland retired the Interstate Distributor Company name and absorbed the company into Heartland. August 26th of 2019, they bought Millis Transfer for $150 million. June 1st of 2022, they acquired Smith Transportation. That's how this all got started, for $170 million. And in August 22nd, so less than 2 months, or a little bit over 2 months later, they acquired CFI, Contract Freighters Incorporated, for $525 million. So this company's really been expanding. I didn't know about the Smith thing until I started this, but I did talk to a CFI driver who really said they don't know anything about it. In fact, I think I also had a comment on here from a husband and wife team said they didn't really know anything about it. So although they absorbed Interstate Distributor Company It seems that they have left alone Millis. I believe they left alone Millis from what I can see. CFI and Smith. In an article about the Smith acquisition, it does say that they intend to leave Smith the way it is, with their warehousing, everything else. Obviously, that's a fairly local company for me here in Pennsylvania because they're out of Roaring Springs. But that will be my next story. And again, guys, thank you so much for all the comments you leave. I love them all. You know, if you got something bad to say about Heartland, say something bad, got something good, or if you work for one of these other companies that they acquired, let me know how it went with the transition with Heartland. Like, if you've noticed anything change through that. But, hey, guys, as always, you know, love all you guys. So, catch you on the next one.